Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, March 8th, 2021. My name is Mike Langford, and welcome back to another episode of DearBands Live, the podcast that explores the paths and stories of career-minded artists and music industry professionals. My guest tonight began performing in their early teens alongside twin sister Mercedes as drummer and vocalist in the indie pop alternative rock band Courage My Love. The past decade has led to exponential growth, including a major label record deal, Canadian, US, and European tours, and amassing credits as a musician, songwriter, and producer. Recently, she's launched a new band entitled Softcult that's been dubbed Music for Mall Goths. Please welcome my guest tonight, Phoenix Arn-Horn.
Hello.
Phoenix, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for joining me on the show. How was the intro?
Intro was great, honestly. I feel super hyped listening to that.
I've been practicing so much because I read that and then like I practice it, and then when it's go time, it's like I can't read anymore.
That's how it goes. It's that red light anxiety. I suppose.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. That was a little bit for me. Again, how are you doing? What's new? What's going on?
I've been doing good. Like you said, just working on a new band. That's been really fun. Kind of something positive to focus on while I'm stuck at home. It's kind of like taking up a lot of my time these days, just launching like a zine kind of that's associated with that project. And like doing a lot of home recordings too.
Speaking of at home, your background there.
Yeah, it's
pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Is that part of the vibe tech?
It is definitely part of it. That's a big part of that.
It's important. Vibe is important. It's important.
Very important.
You mentioned Softcult.
Mm-hmm.
Just launching that. You have a song that came out. Another Bish came out.
Yeah.
Do you want to chat about Softcult a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. It's like basically another band that my sister and I kind of started together. And it's very Riot Girl inspired. It's kind of like our first time being more political and kind of, I guess, like with a punk ethos in a band. So we're really excited to do that and kind of write music with a stronger message. I guess like a big part of it too is I started producing for that band, and I kind of did a little bit with CML, but this project is like full DIY, like in our house recording. So yeah, that's been like a really fun part of it.
Well, you mentioned with a little bit of a stronger message. I saw it's International Women's Day today, and I saw the message that came up on Softcult, the post you had. Like it was a great post there with a lot of trying to think of the right way to word it. Because I don't want to say like, it's political edge to it, but just like there's a lot of meaning there because a lot of people just said, Happy International Women's Day today, but no one seemed to really post more about what it meant to them or the message you're trying to get across.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks for checking out the post and everything. And yeah, it's kind of like International Women's Day. It's one of those like funny things that kind of goes by where it's like, it's nice, obviously, that, there's a day like that where people think of women and think of their struggles and stuff, but it's kind of like, it maybe should be every day that we're acknowledging people and, thinking about ways that we can appreciate them and help them. It's kind of like Valentine's Day, how that goes by. And it's like, partner any day. Why do you need one day of the year, But
yes, I very much agree with that. And also the thing about, I guess, maybe reminding the mindfulness of certain things. Cause even, not to compare it, but like with the, Let's Talk, it's like, and especially the last year alone, there's a lot of people who've gone through some mental turbulence, to say the least. And it's like, why do we just need one day for that? Why can't we be mindful of that all the time? But I thought that was great that, bands and artists stepping into that. I'm of the thought, some people think like, bands, artists, athletes shouldn't, not say just be political, but like have a stance on certain things. And I think, if you have an audience and you have a platform, like use it.
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm sure in your experience being in a band too, I'm sure you've gotten that comment like, oh, stick to the music, buddy. Like as soon as you say something that matters to you, there's obviously going to be people that just kind of want you to just make music and not have a thought or, you know, an opinion on something. So
yeah, no, I think have some substance, you know.
for sure.
We are, and that's one of those things too. Like we're people with jobs, you know. So why is it just because you're an artist or an athlete or a musician, why are you not allowed to share that? You know? Because good or bad, good, everyone loves the stance. Not so good, like for court stuff and like illegal stuff, it's like people have opinions of people based on these things. And I think, you know, looking up to you know, people in music or arts or musicians, it's like we sometimes look up to them as role models. So like there's a little bit more substance there. I think it is good. I think it's good for everybody.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. And yeah, I feel like people with a platform, it's kind of like, it's not expected, like you don't have to, but I kind of feel like if you have a lot of people watching you and a lot of people listening to you, why not actually try to put something important out there besides like a selfie or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, it can create thought, it can create conversation. I think that's what I was trying to get at there, because you're talking about some of the selfie stuff, some like really shallow social media stuff. Because I think some people, not to go, you know, a complete left-hand turn, but it's like I think a lot of people that have, especially musicians, like are burnt out on social media the last year.
Definitely.
Because like we'll probably get into it, but like when you're touring, I think social media is a lot easier because you always have new stuff every day.
That's so true. Yeah, it's so true. That's actually such a valid point. Yeah, like on tour, it's so much easier because you're just posting like, "Oh, cool, I'm in this city," and it's like
there's
stage or whatever.
And now it's just like, you know, you look outside and you're like, "Oh, it snowed. Snow's gone."
Arguably, though, I would say now there's so much, at least like last year and this year, so much has happened in the world to talk about, you know? And yeah, maybe it's not like part of your everyday life that you actually witness, but social media, I feel like in a lot of ways, it like connects people in that way. Like there'll be these big global events that happen and it's kind of like everyone will talk about it on social media and everyone has an opinion about it, you know?
No, definitely. I think the greater good is good for social media, but I think there's a lot of fluff at times with it, and people can kind of get sucked into that. Back with Softcult. So the band launched like what, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it was.
Like not long ago.
Yeah.
And you released the first tune, another Bish, and then you released the second tune.
Yeah.
What happened with that? Do you want to chat about that for a couple minutes?
Sure. Yeah. Like we put out a second song and we were really excited by it because the lyrics were kind of heavy to us. It was all about, I guess like the cycle of abuse that can happen in relationships. And it kind of hit home personally for us. But, I guess like, what happened was we ended up getting some backlash because some people thought that it sounded really similar to another song by a band called Loathe. So we ended up talking to Loathe's team because it just got to the point where like, I don't know, that comment kept coming up and we just wanted to make sure we were all cool and everything. And yeah, they were cool with it. Everything was cool with it. But I guess it's funny, like talking about social media before this, like some of the comments were just getting super out of hand and super aggressive and crazy. And I guess, you know, even though Softcult's a new band, like our message really isn't about aggression and we just really weren't vibing with that. So we ended up taking the song down, which is a shame, but I think, it's maybe like just one of those things that can happen in music. Sometimes, you know, like you get inspired by similar artists or you use like a certain chord progression or certain guitar tone and it can maybe come off as derivative. So I think that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I was shocked how things escalated, and I was shocked how things kind of played out with that, because there's lots of stuff on the charts we could argue like that's pretty similar to certain things, but when I heard the two songs, I was like, yeah, there's some similarities there, but also they're in different keys. But when you play two chords in a style like that, there's other bands like The Deftones, half of their catalog is one way of playing two chords and another way of playing just straight riffs. So the how it escalated so much, and you're saying with the fans, like, you know, in one way it's like kudos for Loath for having a rabid and supportive fan base, but at the same time, this is my opinion on it. It's like they could have probably chilled their fan base out a little bit and said, you know what, like there's a cool new band and they're making good music, and you know, if you think it sounds like, because someone else could probably say like, well, this song that they released sounds like this other song that came out 2 years ago or something. And I saw another comment too about the video, like, oh, and the video's in slow motion. When you're playing two chords like that, that's what you do with the video. Like that's what the drums play. You put a half speed, like that's what looks cool. So there's so many things where it's like, have you never heard music or watched a music video before?
I saw a funny comment that it just made me laugh. It was like, I don't know, basically saying like, oh, like person sees one movie and it's Boston, and then they see another movie and they're like, oh, this really this reminds me of Boss Baby, you know. Like, I don't know, like honestly, there's no like beef or anything. I think it's kind of like what you said, like, you know, when you're playing in a certain genre and you listen to Deftones and you're inspired by shoegaze, and you know, like, I don't know, I feel like maybe people took it a little far, but at the same time, like you said, they're probably just really, really passionate about Loath and passionate about that band. So I kind of, I can see both sides, you know?
Yeah, no. And that's, I'm happy to hear you say that, to see both sides. Cause like that's how I think people that were level headed were all like, I can see both sides of this. Some people know that one of my past projects, we had some legal issues with a copyright and a name infringement, but it's like the whole thing with that, with the cease and desist on the name for us, was cause for consumer confusion. And I couldn't argue that. It's like, no, I get it. It's words on a piece of paper. It's words on a poster. It's words in Spotify or whatever. But the thing is, it's like, I wouldn't be confused listening to Loath or Softcult. I wouldn't be like, am I really listening to Softcult right now? It's like there was no consumer confusion there, and the names are different, and again, songs are in different keys, and you know, vocalists sound different. I'm just like, where is the problem here? Because we could go back to so many genres and go, what band are we listening to right now? You know, for any era.
I totally understand. Yeah, I get. I did feel a little bit frustrated for that too, but I guess like a positive that came out of that whole thing, even though we ended up taking things down, was we actually got a lot of love from dudes in the metal community, which I'm like, whoa, this is so sick. But that's kind of like the scene with my old band that we started in, was more like that community of like playing heavier bands. And so, it was kind of nice just to see like these like more established metal dudes kind of coming out and being like, "Yo, like chill with the gatekeeping, bro," you know. So that was like a positive from it, you know.
Well, that's good. But it sounds like there's been a little bit, not necessarily a little bit upside from it, because it still sucks to have to remove music. When you work, because like there's the thing too, like, not to keep on it, but it's like some people don't realize how much work goes into writing a song and recording it, let alone the video aspect of it, because your videos are always awesome. Like they always look great, and it's like that doesn't just happen. You don't just run out with your cell phone for a little bit, and you know, it's just like, no, it looks really good. So the amount of work that goes into these things, like that part sucks. But you know, there's always the learning curve for us, regardless of what age. But I just thought it was interesting how that kind of played out. But I guess Path of Least Resistance was, you know,
the music like, down. It was like hard to know, because I don't know, obviously like. I don't know. We didn't think that we were kind of infringing on anything, but at the same time, just like you said, it kind of escalated, and it's just kind of not really our vibe, like to have like those kind of like, I don't know, those kind of comments. It's lame having them stick around on the internet, so it's kind of, I don't know. We just thought it would be better probably just to eliminate it and try to move on.
Well, I guess as lead vibe tech,
you
determined. This is against code for vibe right now, so we'll figure this out. But also the thing too, you know, I always think with musicians, like, you plan on making a lot of music, you know,
Definitely.
Sometimes it goes, sometimes it doesn't. Segueing a little bit, we'll loop back to Softcult later on.
Mhm.
You mentioned Courage My Love. You
Yeah.
mentioned coming from it's like I remember like there's a lot of metal overtones to what you were doing with Courage My Love
Yeah.
when it started. Let's go back to how did you get into music? How did you decide to be a drummer?
Oh man.
Like
I think
what age?
I don't remember. I feel like I was like a tween or a teen, like early like teen maybe. And yeah, I think like the way that kind of came about was like my sister's always been super gifted with guitar, just always had kind of a gift for it. And, we wanted to start a band and we knew that she was going to be the guitar player. And she was kind of like, well, we need a if we're gonna play live. So then it ended up being me. And that's kind of how it happened.
It's
But
kind of
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I love. I'm glad that's how it happened because I love playing drums. It ended up being like a huge passion. So
it's more Mercedes wanted a drummer, and
yeah,
just,
pretty much. Oh.
So you start playing. At what point do you start going? Like let's have a band. Like let's get more musicians, or like let's try to get playing live.
I think yeah, I mean we played a couple shows just like White Stripe style, like 2-piece, and it was fun. I thought it sounded good. It was cool, but we actually I think this is how it ended up happening was we went to record at a studio and the guy there pretty much told us like, oh, you guys aren't ready, you need like you guys are like good singers, but you need to hire a drummer, you need to hire a guitar player, you need to hire like a bass player, and basically told us to like get a band and record the vocals. And we were kind of like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. So then we ended up just getting a bass player, and then that was that. We stayed on drums and guitar. But
that is a really weird. I hope there's a movie made about this, and I'm curious to see who plays that person in particular. Because like that's just such a weird response. Because like part of recording is the experience for the musicians.
I know,
especially if you're young. It's like that's the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say like he maybe had a point that like we could have practiced more or something, but yeah,
but that's learning. That's how we learn.
Yeah, yeah, it was maybe a little weird to tell like young musicians that are super amped and like hyped and like want to record and stuff. It's kind of like, yo, encourage, but yeah,
focus maybe on one song or something and just like
yeah
make it a thing.
It ended up leading to good things though, so I should probably thank that guy for just saying that.
That is the silver lining. So yeah. what age was that? You see your first studio experience?
I feel that might have been like 14 or 15. It was like before we were really taking stuff like seriously, but yeah, like probably, yeah, like 14, 15, maybe 16.
and what was the deciding factor, the transition into being serious about music?
I mean, we just really liked playing shows and we really liked writing. And honestly, I think maybe the deciding factor that like, that kind of made us think like, oh, we can actually do this for real was when we met our managers, Chris and Nicole. And the way we met them was hilarious. Like we played this battle of the bands and Chris was actually judge. And yeah, so it was funny because all of us in the band had braces. We're all super like pimply teens. And then for some random reason, I guess Chris and Nicole thought that we could be good, so they decided to work with us. Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Was that Indie Week or like what Battle of the Bands was that?
It was actually a Battle of the Bands in Stratford, Ontario. I think it was one that Long and McQuaid put on or something. But yeah.
Well, it's just like I know Chris and Nicole. We know each other for a long time. Actually, that's where we first crossed paths at Pocket Studios. And you're there, and when you're in music long enough, like you can spot potential. You can definitely spot when something like, no, that's good, like that's ready to go. But you can also spot when things have potential and stuff like that. And so I remember we chatted about it very briefly, like our first time we crossed paths at Pocket, and you were Courage My Lab was in the live room at Pocket and
Mm-hmm.
rehearsing, and they called people in. They called us in. Actually, a couple of the guys from Parabel were there, I think. And they called us in to watch one of the songs. And
Mm-hmm.
like, do you remember how you felt during that
Oh,
performance? I know it was a long time ago, but
I think I was like super nervous because yeah, this is like in my mind, like I grew up in like Kitchener, Ontario, and we're in like a studio in Toronto, and then there's these cool band dudes like watching us, and like we're in like a legit like live room and stuff. So I was probably like super nervous. But yeah, I remember meeting you. It was so awesome. Like Nicole and Chris gave us like the Runaways treatment, and you guys were there to like sabotage the show and then see if we could like recover. So that was awesome. That was
oh,
great.
it was that part was fun on my side. Like I was part nervous because like I was sensing like some nervousness. So like my brain was like, well, now I'm nervous too because like I want everything to go good, and also part of me too. It's just like some showcases are really awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen, I've been part of some showcases where it's like people, like three people sitting at the back of a room, and you're in like an empty, not empty, but like a venue with just three people at the back of the room, and you're supposed to perform, and then they're just judging your performance and stuff like that. So part of me was like, I understand why they wanted to bring some people in to see the band, but also I'm like, can I not just go and like watch from the other room? Like, can I not just like be off to the side and not to just stand in the room? But no, I thought it was great, and yeah, it's fun. I can't remember whose microphone I moved. And I think I turned off the clutch on your hi-hat.
Oh yeah, I think so. That was awesome. That was funny.
Because as drummers, when your hi-hat goes, world of problems for your balance and everything like that. So I'm like, I'll see how I can come out of that. But no, it was fun. It was fun. It's a good thing that for Chris and Nicole to do that to help everybody.
No, definitely. It was like I'm glad that they did that because like they definitely helped prepare us for more, like you said, like showcases and like live scenarios. And yet it was like, even though it was like a little bit nervous, we were in a safe space. We're in, know, like the live room of the studio. It's all friends, whatever, not a big deal. But yeah, no, it definitely like helped later on when we actually had to perform for like label people and like,
So you meet Chris and Nicole. Do you start writing with them? Do you just start working? Like how did that relationship kind of go?
It was cool. Like we basically like went to their studio and they kind of had the talk with us like, oh, are you guys serious or is this kind of just like a hobby? And obviously we were like, no man, we're like so serious, we want to do this, let's go. And then they they like recorded a couple demos with us, and then they definitely like helped us like learn how to write songs better, just write more. I don't know, they definitely like helped with the songwriting, but to their credit, they didn't ever force anything. They're always really like open to our ideas and like trying to get us to put stuff out there. So they kind of like taught us how to collab, I think, a bit more with songwriting and how to be a bit more open to ideas and stuff and song structures. Because yeah, we totally were the type of band that like if we had a riff, we'd be like, oh yeah, we need to go on like a full like 10-minute odyssey right now. So yeah, they taught us like a bit more how to like rein it in. But yeah. And then just Chris ended up recording our first, actually Chris recorded our first 2 EPs and produced them too. Yeah.
No, it helps to have some of that in-house, but also in the family.
Definitely.
And when you know it's coming from a good place, because that's one of those things. You talk about songwriting. Some people, I feel like they just want to feel like they have input, so they'll just say something. Mm-hmm. So it's refreshing to hear that they probably had input on something, but it's like, do what you're going to do with it. But
yeah, no, they always joke around and we call them like our band mom and dad, because like they taught us so much, because both of them obviously they'd been in bands too. So yeah, they taught us so much about like being in a band, in the band world and the writing world, because they're both songwriters. And Chris is like my production guru. Like he literally taught me all the production stuff. So yeah, it's cool, like you say, like we're kind of like a family. And they manage Softcult too. We've only ever had like I guess like one set of managers because they've co-managed together, but we've never had anyone else manage any project that Sades and I have been in, and like I don't want to change that. They're just like great people. So
no, great people, and just again having people you trust, you know, for your best interest. Because I'm of the thought like everyone might not always love each other, but it's knowing that everyone has each other's best interests in mind.
Yeah,
you know, when you're having disagreements and stuff like that. But I think that's fantastic. The relationship there. I just wanted to say one thing too. It's like that question of, you know, are you serious about music? Because you're probably mid-teens at that point.
Yeah,
And like a lot can happen between say 16 and 19 or 21, and how you view life and things that you want to do. And it's like I've seen the amount of people that drop off at music around 19 or 20 because life starts to set in. The next time is around like 24, 25, and then like 27 to 30. 35 is a big year for a lot of people dropping. So the idea, like early on, it's like it's easy for someone in high school to say like, yeah, I want to do music, but that might not be the same world they want to live in when they hit 19. Just to no, I'm actually going to save that question for later. So you're working with Chris and Nicole. You've got some music made. You end up signing a record deal.
Yeah. So it was like kind of cool. Like early-ish on, we actually had like a couple record labels interested, which was crazy to us because like I don't know, we were up until then kind of just like a local band, so we were like, this is really crazy. And then we ended up signing with Warner Music in Canada, and I don't remember how old we were. I think we were maybe like, I want to say we were like underage, because I kind of remember we had to have our parents there when we signed the contract. But I might just be like imagining that. But I feel like we were like maybe on the cusp of 18 or something. We weren't quite old enough yet.
It's funny how you say you're on the cusp of 18, but it's like down in the States.
Yeah.
I always forget that like legal age down there is like 21.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, that's so old compared to Canada.
I know, but you're like an old person. No, you're old at 21. No, but like, I know it's like, it's kind of weird. Like, not, like 18 to 21. I feel like there's so much like growing up that happens, you know? And then,
So you've signed your deal. So we're not just trying to skip through stuff, because I feel like there's a whole bunch of things that happen. Because the band's playing shows. Had you done any touring before you got signed?
Trying to remember. I think that we'd either done like one tour, or we got signed and then did the tour like soon after. But I don't think we'd had much touring experience actually before we got signed.
So you're thinking, okay, we're just gonna get thrown in the deep end after this.
I don't know. Like I think when we got signed, it feels like so long ago. I'm trying to remember. Like no, no, I think like more than anything, like Chris and Nicole were kind of the ones that were like, oh well, we have to wait for the right deal. We have to make sure everything's good, because obviously they have like more experience at that time, and we were so gung-ho, just like, all right, let's go. First deal we get signed. We want to be on a label, because in our minds back then, that was like you reached like the ultimate height of success if you got a record deal. But how times have changed.
Well, it's crazy, because there's still some bands and artists that have that mindset, and I'm not anti-label. I'm very pro team. And if you got the right people with you, then if you want to partner with a label or partner with management or anybody, it's like, it does make sense. But that idea where some people thinking like, oh, we're going to get a label and they'll dump all this money into us, and then like things will just start happening. It's like, no, like that's when the real work starts, because now they really want to make some money off this too. Like, don't kid yourself.
Exactly. No, that I guess I'll agree with you there. I'm definitely not. I don't know if I'm pro team. Let's put it that way. I'm very pro team. The right team is very key for a successful band.
Yeah, that's my polite way of saying it.
Yeah.
What was the first tour like? You should remember that. Or who was it with, or what was the circumstances around it?
Okay, I totally remember. It was with Faber Drive, and it was kind of a weird vibe because our bass player at the time had just announced to us that he wanted to quit the band and go to school. So, but he was cool enough to actually do the tour and like do all those shows and then go to Japan with us. And then after that, he was going to be out of the band. So yeah, hats off to him for actually like doing all of that. Cause yeah, he could have just like up and left us in like a tight spot, but he didn't. So that was cool. But yeah, it was kind of like it was really fun and exciting because it was like living our dream that we saw in like every band documentary and like, you know, everything growing up, kind of, I guess, like what we wanted to do so badly, we finally got to do it, and with our music and everything. So yeah, that part of it was really cool.
I would say giving your bandmates heads up that you're wanting to explore other things, or really, that's the way to do it. Because I've you know, we've both seen it and heard a bunch of times where like it's just like an abrupt breakup or an abrupt split when people don't want to do that. But to give your band, like, I think 6 months is reasonable. Because I usually think ahead of time you kind of know that you might want to not do something. It's one thing to give 2 weeks notice, but with way bands work, it's like usually 2, 3, 4, 6 months out. So to give everyone a heads up and leave on good terms that way, that's always good. The Faber Drive, was that Canada?
Yeah, so that was a Canadian tour, and it was super sick because we got to go. Actually, I think on that tour we hit places that we still haven't actually gone back to. Like we went to like Newfoundland and like,
oh wow, super Canadian tour
all around Canada. Yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, they were like a really cool band to tour with too. They're really chill and nice guys.
Do you have a song on the radio at that time?
I don't think we did, because I'm pretty sure that was right around the time we either were like getting signed or we just got signed or something. So yeah, it's weird. We didn't really have much going on at the time. I think we just kind of had like our EP out, and yeah, that was it. nothing on the radio really.
So maybe just get the band on the road and just see how it goes.
Exactly.
It's not uncommon, because I was going to make the joke earlier. It's like, you know, I always think like your first tour is the one where you realize you need to do laundry.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to go out, like do shows overnight somewhere and just pack a bag and you're good. But when you're like, hey, I have no clean clothes.
Yeah.
Like acceptably clean enough clothes, actually.
Yeah, so funny. I was just thinking that like actually when kind of touring stopped last year, I was thinking like, dang, it's disgusting to me that I literally used to do like long tours and only bring like 3 pairs of pants. Like, what was I thinking? 3 pairs of pants for like 3 months? That doesn't work.
Well, because you wash your pants again when they're no longer socially acceptably clean enough to wear. So
you think you're gonna wash your pants, but you don't wash your pants.
We don't wash our pants. You know? I would have like my jeans, my like my sweatpants for like the super long drives, and then 2 pairs of show pants.
There you go. That's better.
And yeah, and it's like you look at them and you go, the salt stain's bad enough that I can't get this done.
Of course, too, like every drummer in a rock band, I feel like has like the like black jeans that they wear, and the salt stains just like never leave. They're just there forever. You know?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. I'm probably grossing some people out, but this is the reality of it when you're touring. So
yeah.
But one of the things about being home, like I know I'm just wearing a black t-shirt right now, but it's like, it's nice that you can wear like other stuff than just, you know, black sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's easier when you're on the road trying to do laundry and you're like, well, I got like one white shirt and I don't really want to throw it in with the darks. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to plan your wardrobe a little bit.
Yeah, it just when you see people like they've been touring for a while, it's like you understand why they're packing the way that they are. So wait, you ended up in Japan?
Yeah. So that was that wasn't part of the tour technically, but it was like one of those showcases. I think SEMA maybe put it on, and it was to bring Canadian bands over to Japan. and put them in front of like industry people and meet other stuff. So that was cool. And yeah, that was freaking crazy because it wasn't one of those weird showcases where it's like you and then like 3 like label dudes in the back or something. It was like they actually let people in to watch the show. So that was crazy because we went and we thought like, oh, no one's gonna know our freaking songs. What the hell? And then randomly, like people were singing back our songs to us, and we like had 1 EP out or something, and we were just like, what world are we living in? Like, what is this? But it was awesome.
Were you like, maybe stupid question, you nervous at all going over there? Just like, what are we doing? Was there any thoughts in the flight?
I wasn't nervous to go to Japan because like I'd always wanted to go to Japan. Like I grew up watching anime and stuff, so I was like so excited to go. But I don't know. I was nervous to play the show because it was like with a bunch of other really cool, like way more established bands. And then we went on right after this. Oh, fuck, what were they called? Dang it. There was this really good band that played, and like we were so scared to go on after them because they just like shredded the stage. Like, you know, and we were like, oh God. But ended up being fine. Ended up being cool.
Oh, we've all been there on both sides of the fence for that one. Yeah. I just think it's bonkers because it's just like, you know, how quickly things move along, and all of a sudden like you're on the other side of the planet.
Yeah. No, like I think that's something I won't ever take for granted again. I think as like a teen, I maybe took it for granted because it was like my first experience with any of that. So I thought like, oh, this is just what happens, you know, when you're in a band.
Now you're in Japan, and yeah,
just in Japan. But then now I'm like, no, those things don't happen. You got really freaking lucky, and like, hopefully it'll happen again, you know. But yeah,
that's a good piece of advice to pass on because like some bands and artists, like some, I don't want to say weird stuff, but like some interesting opportunities can come up very early sometimes, and you do think that that's normal. Like I've seen bands that like got buses really early, and you're just like, this is not normal. Like there's some logistics here and stuff like that, but it's like, it's not normal. Another band's been slugging it out for 8 or 10 years in the van before they got to a bus, sort of thing. Not saying it's your situation, but just like, as you're saying, it's just like, you're more appreciative of some of these things.
For sure.
You know, later on, because you realize how special some of those opportunities are and some of those experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
At what, was there a point when especially in your sister, you're just like, this is working, like the band's working, like music is working?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think like, I don't know, like it's weird kind of thinking back because I felt like for a lot of that time I was kind of just in la la land, like just everything was like so rosy and good. So I was kind of like, oh, this is great. Like, I don't know, things are going how they're supposed to be going. And yeah, I didn't really pay much attention to it, but then it's kind of like you don't notice how good things are until things kind of start maybe not being as good. And then you're like, oh wait, yeah, crap, that was really good like back then, you know? But yeah, I think like when things were kind of like on an upward trajectory, we were like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to say that we were completely like taking it for granted, but I think we just didn't realize like you said, like things were moving kind of fast for like how they were, like for how young we were, and you know, being a band with not a ton of music out or not a ton of experience or anything. So, but yeah, definitely like going to Japan and when we started touring a lot, like doing bigger tours and more legit tours, that kind of made me feel like, oh yeah, this could probably be like a thing that like a real career that I do for most of my life, because I was spending a lot of time touring and probably like half the year touring or even a bit more than half the year touring. And then that's kind of more like your everyday life for like your, I don't even know, just the way that you spend your time instead of being at home. Then you start to realize like, oh, this is like a job. This is like a real thing that you need to focus on and put time into, you know?
Well, on that tip, was there a point when you're like, this is a lot of work? This is potentially more work than I thought would need to go on.
I don't like, it's weird. I think my whole mentality about music is like, it's kind of like the only thing I've ever really been like good at and the only thing I've really like excelled at. So I've kind of never really thought of it as like too much work. It's always just kind of been like, oh, this is like my deal, you know, like this is what I do, which isn't maybe the healthiest thing. Like it's probably better not to base your self-worth and like all of that on your musical success or on like anything like that. But just for me, yeah, it's never really felt like work. It's because I don't know, it's always stuff that I always enjoyed doing. So it wasn't really like I never thought like, oh, it's taking up too much time. Like I never thought of it like that, you know?
Well, it sounds like you enjoy the challenge,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and that's the thing too. We chatted about it briefly before. We're just like learning, like we're
Yeah.
always learning stuff. So like that kind of that's kind of the carrot and stick. I think when it comes to you know, artists, it's like we're constantly chasing learning stuff and getting better at things too, and just evolving, you know,
Yeah.
in arts and crafts. So you mentioned a couple minutes ago when things were good, kind of being in La La Land.
Mhm.
Your sister fronting the band, you
Mhm.
playing drums. As far as responsibilities goes, did you feel like you had less say in what was going on? Did you feel like I want to say not equal, because obviously there's different roles in bands.
Mhm.
And I think across the board, people who are fronting bands, there's a lot more responsibility on their shoulders for certain things. Was there a point where you felt like you were sitting back a little too far in what was going on, or you wish you had more say, or
I don't know. My parents did such a good job raising like two sisters because we Sades and I for some reason we've never really been like feeling like in competition with each other. So I never really felt like my voice wasn't heard, you know, or that like she was taking the lead on things. I know she had a lot, like you say, a lot of responsibility kind of on her shoulders. And I think I did notice, I noticed like sometimes it would take a toll on her just having to be kind of up front and center. Whereas like me, I'm more used to just like as I am as a person at like being a bit more in the background and kind of like behind the scenes. And I, I think, yeah, like it's kind of one of those things where I don't really have like a desire to be that sort of like front person or that sort of like spokesperson necessarily. So I always, to be honest, like was grateful when Sades would kind of handle certain interviews or, like handle those kind of things. Cause it's not like I don't like doing that stuff. It's more just kind of like, I feel like my role in the band was maybe, I don't know, I felt like I excelled a bit more in more like a support role. And we wrote everything together and we made all those creative decisions together. So that's kind of more what I cared about, I guess.
it's interesting though. Like what I'm getting from that, it's like you're still an extra set of ears and eyes
Mm-hmm.
on what's going on in the relationship that you'd have, and that trust and that honesty to be able to say something if you're noticing something. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some bands, they're not like that. It's
Yeah.
like there's a bit of a gap between people fronting a band and the rest of the band members.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if it's like a solo artist fronting a band, it's like, well, okay, well, that's a bit different there. But
Yeah.
still, it's like you want to make sure that the other people in the band all feel like they're heard, and at the same time, too, you trust the input that they do have, and realize that it does need to kind of go up to whoever's fronting the band, because they
Yeah.
usually are the spokesperson of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's I just thought that was interesting because like even looking at the pictures for Courage My Love, definitely look at the pictures from Softcult. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm always of the thoughts like your singer, whoever's fronting the band, just take a step or two forward. And
Yeah.
it's like I never really saw that in the pictures, especially with Courage My Love, but I knew who the singer was.
Yeah.
But I always felt like there's a balance there. And I always thought it was really well done how the energy would still put the attention where it needs to go, but it wasn't, the cheap and easy way of doing it, just take two steps forward. And again, now you're a singer sort of thing. No, I thought it was interesting because like, you know, being a musician in a band, like a lot of things can just start happening around you,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just curious to get your perspective on that. Just trying to think. I don't know how far ahead to skip here because you end up getting on Warped Tour.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny, like you're talking about like tour buses and stuff. So
Yeah.
that like, I've never toured in a actual bus for my own music, but um on Warped Tour, that was the first time we toured in a bandwagon, which is basically like half a tour bus, kind of, you know. It does have a shower, so that's, I'll say, like bandwagons are a little bit in my mind like somewhat, I don't know, more my vibe because at least I can shower in there.
You
But
can lie down and shower. You are in good,
yeah,
good
exactly.
vehicle.
But yeah, so that was cool because that was kind of like, I guess, another moment where for us we were kind of like, oh dang, like this is getting like cool, this is getting big. Because I mean, I think people in like alternative music, you know, you watch like bands at Warped Tour and it's like kind of like, I don't know, a big deal in that whole scene. So getting to play it was like so freaking crazy for us when we were younger. And yeah, like just getting to be on like a bandwagon, like not just in the back of our van, you know, like that was just so cool and such a fun experience too. But yeah, that was awesome.
Do you remember getting the news that you could potentially be on Warped Tour?
Yeah, I totally remember, and it's like so funny. Oh my god, I was doing like driver's ed at the time. I was so bad. Like I literally would like sleep in class and just be like, I hated doing driver's ed so much. And then I remember like we every day like the kids would like go and chill on the lawn and like eat or whatever. And I just checked my phone and I saw that we like were gonna be on Warped Tour, and I was like, to every kid there, I was like, "Yo, see my band, we're gonna be on Warped Tour. This is us." And they're like, "Yeah, you still suck," but yeah, it was good.
What year was that?
Oh man, I don't know. I think the very the first year that we actually did the whole tour, I think it was 2014. So yeah, that was the first year, and then we did it again in, I think it was 2017. We did the whole tour again. But before that, I guess the first time we ever played on the tour, just a couple of dates, not the full thing, I think I was maybe, yeah, like 17 or like 18 or something. I was like pretty young at the time, I think. Yeah.
Was that your first time touring the States?
I'm trying to think. No, I think the first time touring the States, I'm pretty sure was, oh no, wait, maybe it was the first time. No, I think the first time touring the States was actually just a random like headline tour, and then we played a showcase at a place called Arlene's Grocery, which is like the coolest venue ever. It's literally like a grocery store that turned into a venue. So that was so sick.
That is where is Arlene's Grocery Store?
I think it's in New York, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Because I can imagine that, because there's a few venues in the States that have arcades attached to them, like Spicoli's and stuff like that. But it's like, I can imagine a grocery store with a stage, and it's like, well, what do we do after 7 p.m.? Well, turn it into a venue. Got food here, it's kitchen.
It was dope, and the stage was cool and everything too. Like it was awesome. But yeah, that was cool because again, yeah, that wasn't like a showcase where it was just like a couple people. It was like they actually opened the doors, and yeah, like you were saying, I think that might actually be better if you want to see a band in their actual environment. It's probably better to check them out in front of an audience that actually is like more of a real audience than just a couple of spectator people, you know?
Yeah, I back on that. Like, I'd be a bit suspect if I'm like seeing a band that's just totally giving her on stage and there's nobody there, because you got to play to the room a little bit, you know. And it's like when there's nobody there, it's like, well, don't put clown show on upstage on stage. It's like play to what's going on and get the energy there. And also, like, I would be more impressed. I'd be impressed with a boring band on stage that brought a lot of people out. You know, because not all bands are just fire from the stage sort of thing. But if people are connecting with it, it's like, I always thought it was weird. Some of the showcases that I've seen, I'm just like, you know, this is stupid. Like, this should not be the way this is done.
To be fair, I've played like my fair share of tours where like the room is like half full or less, like not a ton of show. And then honestly, sometimes the best way to like get over like being disappointed about that is just to like rock so hard. Just try to go.
If there's 3 people there, and I like, there's very few bands that have toured that haven't played to 2 or 3 people, and give them a show, like for sure, like still throw down for them, but yeah, it's funny sometimes. We could probably go on for a while about the realities of what touring is actually like, because there's many peaks and valleys of touring. I just want to bring up too, because we're Canadian musicians going to the States. Do you remember your first time crossing the border? As a musician?
Yeah, like the very first time. I think I was really nervous, even though I had like no reason to be nervous. Like I
still do.
Properly. Yeah, I don't know. I was just like nervous because I remember we had to get out of the van and they were like going through the van, and I don't know. It was nervous. It was nerve-wracking, but yeah, I don't know. I still, like you say, I still get nervous even though I know the paperwork and everything is good. Everything's
You're in
fine.
the system. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a little bit stressful every single time. But yeah.
No, I just want to throw that in there for any other bands. Once we can get back to work that way, just be smart crossing the border. And you are at the mercy of the Border Patrol. But at the same time, it's like, just get your paperwork in order. And also but CFM and AFM, they're very, very helpful with getting our paperwork together and stuff. But it's not that scary, but at the same time, you're just like, well, here we go. We'll see what happens. But so you did Warped Tour. Possibly stupid question. Did you learn anything on that Warped Tour? With some of the other bands, there was any of the bands that you kind of cross paths with that maybe took you under the wing a little bit, or maybe were just like passing on some pointers? Because like when you see a new band, because I'm sure you're in the position where you see a new band doing some things and you're just like, hey, pro tip, don't do this and do that instead.
I feel like in most scenarios I'm the new band. Like I don't, I'm usually the one that people are trying to help. But like, on Warped Tour, definitely like, it taught me and the rest of us, I think, how to actually tour, because I don't know, it's kind of like a tough tour. Like you have to, especially for like a band that doesn't have a huge crew, which we didn't either time that we did it. You kind of have to do everything yourself, like and it's like harsh weather conditions, and it's outside. And you have to get up super early, and usually you go to bed super late. So it's kind of just one of those tours that like it takes like a bit of a toll, but it definitely, like you're touring with like bands that have probably toured the country multiple times or toured overseas. They're used to touring. So we learned a lot that way, and we learned a lot kind of like, it kind of put us in our place a little bit more, like, oh, if you want to have people come out to your set, you have to get up early and like flyer the line, and then maybe people will come check out your band. If you sleep in and you don't do that, well, maybe no one's going to watch you. Or like, I don't know, just stuff like that, like loading all our gear across like a huge field to get to our stage. It definitely like humbles you a little bit. So I think that, after that, I had like a new appreciation of venue tours. After that, it definitely like made me vibe with that a bit more. But yeah.
Do you wish you had a few more hands or crew for tours like that? Like
Warped Tour, I think like the second time we did it, we had a bit more people along, and it helped. But like at the same time, I'm so used to doing things like setting up my drums and like doing everything myself and like packing them away, doing all that stuff. It's a little weird. Like I feel a little weird if other people do it now. Not that they'll do it wrong. I just feel like a douche kind of. So and it's like a cool like Zen thing after the show, just kind of getting all the like adrenaline out, is just putting away your stuff and like calming down kind of. But I don't know. I think on Warped Tour, it definitely helps to have like someone there to help do the merch, someone there to maybe like be a tour manager. Obviously you need a driver, just like a couple extra people to kind of help, so it's not all on the band, I guess. But
you mentioned help how to tour properly? Do you feel like having tour manager and driver, like that's part of touring properly?
I mean, not necessarily. It kind of depends. I feel like I've toured with a lot of bands where one of the people in the band is the driver, or the band will like kind of trade off, like different members will drive, or like one person in the band acts as the tour manager and kind of, is the one talking to the venue people and dealing with all of that kind of stuff, like getting the hotels in order. So it's not, I don't know if that's like the proper way of touring necessarily, is like having other people do that for you. But I just mean, I guess kind of the proper way of touring is probably to not party all the time so that you can't do your job the next day. Like, be like responsible a little bit and not be like a jerk. So I think that's probably like when I say the proper way of touring, I mean like don't just assume that jobs are going to get done. Like you're probably going to be the one that has to like do that job,
Yeah, I joke about that. Actually, there's two things, because I was thinking about when you're chatting about it. It's like, if you're 17, 18, or 19, tour managing probably difficult, because like there's a lot of things that need credit cards. There's a lot of things that, because you're booking stuff all the time, like you're booking your hotels all the time. There's lots of things there where, when you're younger, like it might be, especially down in the States, again, if you're 19 and legal age down there is 21, that's a whole other thing. We know bands can handle those different job responsibilities, but it's like when things when they get bigger, it's like you can't be everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
And as someone who would work merch and also tour manage, it's like, okay, well, I'm at merch, but also I need to settle up for the show. Someone needs to be here. So if you make friends with other people that work in merch, they can kind of watch stuff for a bit. So it's good to have that. But it's like, the tours that I've gone out where we've had someone dedicated to merch, like that alone, huge help. And also driver. The idea where everyone can relax, like everyone can rest and sleep, because it hits a point too where just exhaustion kicks in, especially after a couple of weeks. And it's like, it's not safe for anybody anymore, especially if, and I'm sure you've experienced it, where like you're on tour and you're chasing a bus. If you're a van and you're chasing a bus, and it's like, okay, it's a 14-hour drive between venues. Yeah. And it's like, well, we're opening, so we don't need to be there at like 10 a.m., but we still need to be there for 1. So like we've got to go. And when people can't really sleep or get rest, it can definitely turn into a bit of a thing. But
so true.
Warped Tour again, I wanted to touch on, I think it was the last one you were on. And it was like, I kept seeing posts about like bands getting sunstroke and like heat stroke, and like people there like getting, like, what's that like? Because you talk about trying to stay healthy and do the right thing, but if everyone's turned into French fries out there trying to enjoy a punk festival.
So yeah, that's like, I guess like Warped Tour, I think maybe the thing that happens, like it's like not if, it's when, like you are probably gonna get heat stroke. Like, and it's, we've got global warming to thank for that, I think, because definitely I know in 2014 it was hot, but it was so much worse in 2017, like in like Arizona and like Nevada and places like that where it's just so insanely hot. Like, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, no, in 2017 it sucked because I think it was like at least half the tour, I was kind of having a rough time because I also had a kidney infection and I got like hit with heat stroke pretty bad. So yeah, for half of that tour, I was pretty sick and just like I'd play like our set and then I would like go throw up and then I would just like die for the rest of the day. But like other than that kind of thing happening, it's a great tour. It's just kind of like you have to make sure you're just relentlessly like chugging water and like try not to eat really processed food, which is like hard to do on tour, like it's hard to be healthy on tour, but yeah, it'll catch up to you. And yeah, just got to make sure you stay hydrated, like, and get sleep and try not to die, basically.
You mentioned it's hard to eat healthy on tour, and there's some people would argue like it's not that hard to eat healthy, at any time. But like, I'm of the thought when you're on tour, you kind of eat what you can see, because
Yeah.
like going way out of your way to get food sometimes can cost you a lot of time when you should be on the road traveling. So that was always one of my things. It's like when we leave a venue, if we can see food, that's what we get,
Yeah.
opposed to driving around. What's your go-to tour food?
Oh man. Go to
You don't have to pick one. You can pick a couple because
I mean, like you said, like a lot of the time it's kind of like while you're at a rest stop or something or a gas station, whatever you can find there that's fast that you're not going to get yelled at for taking a long time, or at least that was my experience. I usually would go for maybe like Chipotle if that's around, because you can get like a good like burrito bowl. There's some veggies.
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
the hack.
Yeah, except for it's a little bit expensive. That's the only thing I'll say for touring. Like as tour food, it's a little bit like too expensive.
But sometimes you can get 2 meals out of it if you ration. But if it's really good and you're really hungry, you're just like, I don't care.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just going for it.
Yeah, definitely you can get 2 meals. Just easy on the lettuce because it doesn't really like do that. But yeah, no, yeah, it as maybe like gross as it is to eat a lot, Subway too, because you can kind of same like get lots of veggies if you really want. But I just like the smell of Subway now, because that's what our van smells like now. I hate it so much now. But anyway.
No, and that's the thing when you're on, like, you hit a point touring as well where like you're eating for nourishment. You're not eating for flavor sometimes.
Yeah.
You're just like, I need to eat something. It is what it is. Because that's how I felt about like McDonald's, like double doubles or McDoubles. It's just like, I'm so over the saltiness of this.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's for a bit of protein and whatever else is in there. And, it's very cost effective, but you hit a point where you kind of just don't really eat to enjoy food. And then when you get to like one of our things was, if we had a day off and there was a Ruby Tuesday nearby, like the veggie, like buffet.
Yeah.
Like we would kill time in a Ruby Tuesday, just eating and chatting and hanging out. Cause like, again, you talk about the veggies, like a lot of veggies from fast food places, it's garbage veggies in a way.
Yeah.
So to have a place where it's like a buffet of it. Just eat salad like, for like an hour and a half.
If you're like in the desert and like dying of water or of thirst, and then you finally like hit an oasis and you're like, that was probably that feeling.
That's what we do on our days off. It's like, okay, who wants to actually go and sit down and eat something? That's not just Subway or McDonald's but that, again, back to, not to give everyone free advertising, but Chipotle and Qdoba were always a hit on tour. I'm sorry to hear about the heat stroke and the kidney issues and stuff like that. No, but it's just like, it's the thing is like touring's such a grind. And like you can probably imagine, and you've probably experienced it firsthand, like when you're on tour and you just have to keep going and your body's not really cooperating. And the idea where you see some other bands where it's like, they can party pretty hard, but like you can only do that so many days in a row until you probably can't recover from it. Yeah. Because you need sleep. Because like I'm sure you've seen it where like super grumpy bands where you're just like they're hurting from whatever substance has been going on. But then also it's like, hair of the dog sometimes where like they think that's like they can make themselves feel better again. But like it's a 24-hour day job when you're touring.
Yeah, no, like I know for me, I think it was like part of it was kind of like near the beginning of the tour, everyone was just so psyched to be there. And we'd like, I think what happened was we played a couple shows to get up to like where the first date was. So we'd already been kind of like celebrating and, whatever. And then, actually playing the set, I think was like the best part of my day and the easiest part of my day when I was feeling bad. Cause it kind of like the adrenaline would kick in and like, I would just be kind of like in a different space. And then it's like directly after the set, then it's like back to reality, back to like feeling crappy kind of. But like that like 25-minute set was just like the oasis in the desert. But yeah.
All the bands on Warped Tour. How many other bands have women in them?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I think actually, Kevin Lyman, he's come under fire before for not having, I guess, like women on the tour, which to be honest is kind of to me, I think it's like a little bit of a cop out because he does try to include a lot of female acts, female bands, and honestly, there's a ton of females on the crew. Like I would say probably an even amount of like male to females on the crew. And yeah, I don't know. He had like a stage that was dedicated to female artists. And yeah, I don't know. Like I think like Warped Tour, as far as like a tour goes, tried to be pretty inclusive. And I know like in alternative music, there's a lot of like really great female artists killing it. So I don't know. I always thought it was kind of cool that, it was a tour where there was a lot of diversity.
It's difficult for me to word that because like I see it sometimes where I'm just like, there's other bands that could be here, but also person of color, even though I don't see myself that way with how I grew up in Peterborough, Ontario. It's like you don't notice it sometimes unless you're on the other side of the fence. And that's why I was asking. It's like when you were looking around Warped Tour, like, did you see other women in music there? There female fronted bands, or other, was there other female drummers on the entire tour?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. Like, I think female drummers, yeah, like that's definitely like a rare kind of breed. But I think there was at least one other band with a female drummer, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's kind of like you don't see it that often. And yeah, I don't know. The 2 years that like I did the full like run of Warped Tour, I thought that I was like around a lot of other females, and like I didn't feel really that much excluded or that much like, like that there were like way more guys or anything. But it's definitely true, and I'm sure like you can probably understand too, like representation is so important in those spaces, like just seeing other people that you can relate to doing something that is like inspiring to you. It really does matter in a big way.
Yeah, no, there's other bands, right? Like, and again, you talking about representation. There's other bands where I see their band photos, and I'm just like, oh, it's a black guy in the band, and they're a rock band. Like, that's cool. Like, that's good. But it's like I very rarely get to see that cross paths, because there's definitely, especially being a mixed kid too, it's like there's definitely times where we can have little conversations about things. And again, it's just like women music, it's like I can't think of that many bands we've toured with, and it's not like the bands don't exist, but it's just like sometimes it takes a while for the paths to cross. So I was just wondering with Warped Tour, because yeah, it's predominantly a bunch of guys in bands going and touring. But I was just curious, also you being very young as well. It's just like part of it too, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where you show up at some of these shows, these venues, and if they don't know who you are, they don't know that you're a musician. They don't know you're in a band. Any stories, experiences like that?
Oh man, yeah. Like
possibly a stupid question, but
no,
again, it's to help people understand.
No, it's good that you're like bringing up that kind of stuff, because yeah, it happened like a couple times where people, security thought that I was like dating someone in a band, but I wasn't like actually playing the show. And same with Sades, like they would be like, all right, and anyone that's not in the band has to leave the green room, and then we that includes you too, and we're like, no, it doesn't. But then,
you got a wristband, you got tour laminate, you're just like. You're on your own shirt.
Yeah, I know. Well, oh man. Well, this was my bad. Actually, one time I just was a dumbass and I left my tour lanyard like somewhere. I left it like in the van or something. And then I was trying to get into the venue, because it was like our time to like get everything ready to like bring up on the stage, and the security guy was like not having it, and I'm like, no dude, seriously, like look at the poster there, that's me. That face is me. And then yeah, it was just like I ended up having to call our bass player to come and like vouch for me, which is kind of like not fine. And I'm like, see, but yeah, that stuff definitely does happen, and it's like super annoying every time.
Oh, lesson there for anybody. It's like have your tour credentials on you at all times. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I just very, very short story. I almost got punched out in New Jersey. For that reason, I was trying to get somewhere and someone was just not having it. And I'm like, no, like I'm in one of the bands. Like, and he's like, what band are you? I'm like, we just played. Like I just had to run over to merch for a second. Now I got to run up to backstage. And it's like, I had to go this super long way around to get to where the door was, sort of thing. But yeah, it's funny sometimes. No, I just wanted to bring that up. 'Cause again, it's like for people that are on the other side of the fence, it's just like assuming someone's not in a band because of how they look. And it's like, I know we can carry a sense of confidence with us when we're walking towards something, we're doing something, but it's just like, I've gone into some venues and been treated like garbage until they realize that I'm in one of the bands.
Wow.
And it's just like, yeah. And I can only imagine, again, you're saying just like, you're one of the band's girlfriends or, it's like, just be mindful that, or some of these venues too, it's like, just do a little bit of homework.
Well, yeah, but it's just messed up. Like, like you were treated like trash, and until they realized you're in a band, and then, oh, sorry.
Now you get a pass, yeah.
Yeah, it's still not okay for them to talk to you that way, It's like, yeah, I don't know. I think hopefully, I'm hoping that can change sooner than later, because at least I felt like last year, hopefully a lot of light was shone on certain, like incidents and inequalities. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like sometimes it's disheartening because it's like things that have been a problem for years, and I don't get why, people still have that mentality sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, like younger generations will be able to, have a better life and not have to deal with like that stupid bullshit, because it's really dumb.
Yeah, it's like having to prove stuff all the time. It's like prove that you're in a band, and it's just like, and as you're saying, it's like I'm on the poster. Like it's just over there. You just don't want to believe me. You don't want to be wrong about this. You want to just go with your first impression, and that's right, and go with it. I think it is changing. And again, I think it's just one of those things like younger people coming up thinking that way and doing their homework and understanding that it's not weird, to see different people outside of the norm, the normal appearance of the genres and the bands and stuff like that. So I thought for anybody that's out there, like you are not alone when it comes to how you feel sometimes walking into these venues and how you're treated sometimes. But moving on from Warped Tour. So we've gone through the very hydrationally challenged tour that would be. Where are we going after that? Where's Courage My Love after that?
So yeah, like CML, it was kind of crazy because like we had those 2 EPs, did Warped Tour, and then started touring a bit more extensively. And yeah, I'm pretty sure 2017, 2018 was like probably the most insane, I think, for touring. Like that's when we started touring, I think, for like half the year or more than half the year. And, we did like overseas tours, and that was really exciting. And then I guess, finally, like we put out like a full length album, which was like the first full length album we ever did. And yeah, like all that was great. And I think we were kind of talking a bit about, like labels before this. And I think that's kind of where we started feeling the pressure of, people put like money into the band, and then we're kind of obviously like wanting to make it back. So that's kind of where, we started working with producers that were like hit maker producers, and trying to kind of like outsource to different people outside of like our tightly knit kind of team that we had. And that like it wasn't like a bad thing in and of itself, but I think a lot of the time what can happen is, you know, people will want something to be successful and then maybe kind of like try a bunch of different things and see what sticks. Kind of, it's like when you throw pasta on the wall to see if it's gonna like come down or not. So yeah, that I think I felt like that kind of started happening a little bit, and that's actually what ended up pushing us to be more into producing ourselves and recording ourselves. Because yeah, we spent like a lot of time, and we had like good experiences like working with other people and writing with other people and all of that, but we kind of started realizing, like we're paying like thousands of dollars to work with these people for them to have like their name on something, but the outcome of it isn't necessarily like, at least in our minds creatively, not as, we weren't as happy with it as kind of the things that we were doing, just us. So yeah, I just kind of, that's what kind of started getting us more into like learning how to record ourselves and like produce ourselves that way.
Well, just to go back a second, because Courage My Love in the beginning, like part of me wants to say it was a metal band because there was a lot of like metal overtones and the guitar work, just like a lot of things are like there, but near, or I don't want to say near the end, but like later on with Courage My Love, like to me it was very pop, very alternative. So like that transition, like if you listen to the earlier stuff and listen to that, do you think that confused fans a little bit, or just natural progression of a band evolving or maturing?
I could totally see how that would confuse people, because even we sometimes would be like, Sades and I like listen to so much different music, so we were inspired by a lot of different things. And yeah, like when we started, it was definitely more like heavy guitars, heavy tones, more like kind of like post rock kind of vibes. And then yeah, we started getting more into like synths and more into that kind of stuff. And I think, a big part of that was we were getting a lot of pressure to have a song on the radio, which, it's not like a bad thing. It's just kind of like, as a band, as singers, our voices aren't super like rough rock voices. So then we kind of, I don't know, we were told that like our voices wouldn't really work on like rock radio. So it kind of like, in my mind now, it's a little bit lame to hear that, because I don't know, I just kind of feel like part of what makes bands different and special is like how unique they are. So maybe like the heavy guitars and the soft vocals are kind of like a unique sound, but anyway, it did end up getting kind of more light and a bit more like alternative rock and all in like indie vibes kind of. And yeah, I still like it and everything. It was still like really fun to work on and like good music, but I do think maybe some of it came from pressure to be a little bit more like mainstream and accessible.
I find it interesting to get, like, for you to get feedback that the vocals aren't going to work for rock radio. Didn't you do some work with David Bendeth?
Yeah, we did.
Who produced Paramore?
Yeah,
like one of the biggest records, and it's just like that's female fronted, female vocals on it. So like, was there a little bit? I'm trying to think of a way to word this. Were you exploring to see what he could bring to the equation, or are we still aiming for rock at this point? Or are we aiming for more alternative, or?
It's like a little bit weird. Like I think the waters got a little bit murky maybe, and it's not like, I can't blame like any one person for people being confused, because I think at the time we were kind of experimenting with things, and then also like, our label at the time was just leaning more into like the radio world, and kind of, I think that's kind of where like having a team that you really vibe with is important, because I just think a lot of people didn't necessarily see eye to eye with like what the band was and like what the sound was. And I think you know, like working with Bendith was like amazing, and yeah, we learned like so much from him too. But I feel like it was kind of like just at that point in the band, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and so the vision was starting to get a little bit like less clear that way.
Like you maybe felt like you didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah, like it was just like a big change from like recording in Toronto with Chris, you know, to like suddenly we're like in New Jersey, and you know, like we're in New Jersey for like, I don't know, I think we were there for like 2 months or something, like just away from home. And then, you know, like every once in a while we'd kind of hear from our label, and yeah, I think it just got a little bit like none of us really fully knew like, okay, this is for sure the sound we want, this is for sure the vibe we want. But that being said, I'm still like really proud of the music we made during that time, because I think like lyrically and like songwriting wise, it turned out really well. I just kind of wish the process would have been maybe just a little bit easier and a little bit less like butting heads a little bit. But yeah.
No, it's I've been to that conversation with, especially with label people management, where like people just want a hit.
Yeah.
They just want a hit song, and even hearing it from agents, it's like the better you're doing on radio, the better it is, the better tours they can get a handle on stuff. Because it's funny because like, not to go on a bit of a tangent with it, but it's like the idea of a song being big on the radio right now. Meanwhile, there's an artist no one's heard of as far as the radio, but you go and look at their metrics on Spotify or any of the streaming platforms, and you're just like, they have 1.5 million monthly listeners, and I've never heard their song on the radio. And then they can put 500 or 700 people in a room in before times, and tour and stuff. And it's just like that mindset of like, we need a radio hit. I'm just like, no, maybe, this is my opinion, is like, no, maybe we need something that reacts with the audience. And the way you're explaining it, to me, it's just like, you know, artists want to feel like they really are in tune with themselves. Because like, you should be able to do it again. And I can only imagine, not saying this was the case with Bendith, but with any producer or any songwriter, outside songwriters, the idea of like, if the artist doesn't know what just happened or how to get this again, or if they don't feel like they had like that much input into the final result, it's like, did they really feel like they helped cook? Or are they just kind of there? And it's like, I don't think that's a good thing for artists. I think artists should feel like, no, I could do this again, but together we made it better.
Yeah, no, that's like for sure. At least like, actually, even then, my whole mentality, I kind of thought, I don't know, not to diss radio at all, because it does definitely do like big things for.
Yeah, we're not dissing radio. Radio
No.
still can help. We have friends on radio.
It's definitely like a good thing, you know. But I just kind of feel like a lot of artists that don't necessarily like work for like the radio platform end up doing really well on Spotify and have their own, you know, their own kind of fan base that's maybe a little bit like, maybe they don't listen to the radio, you know, like, and I think, yeah, to me, like as soon as people go out and set out to try to make a hit song, you already just know it's not going to be that. Because I just feel like the songs that end up being hits, whether it's on the radio or on Spotify or both or whatever, you know, no one got in that room and was like, okay, let's sit down and let's make a hit that's going to like change the whole world. It's like, it's just like a super creative mind, you know, kind of doing something that, you know, is different at the time and really like you say, like resonates with fans or resonates with people. At least that's what kind of that's kind of what I think about it. But yeah, no, and yeah, I think like a big part of kind of that whole situation was a little bit like, since we were outsourcing things more than we had before, it did kind of feel like, okay, well, where is like our spice in this? You know what I mean? Like, it almost kind of felt like, well, this could be any band, you know, kind of doing this right now, but what's our like mark on it, you know? So I think, yeah, that's like a big thing with like producing ourselves and stepping into that whole world, was kind of like realizing how big production is as like part of a sound, you know, like it really does shape the sound of a band and like the sound of an album. So yeah, just learning more about that is definitely, I think more people should, even if you don't want to be a producer, you should learn the lingo and definitely like try to educate yourself more on that stuff.
Yeah, learn a little bit about recording. There's no excuses anymore.
Yeah,
you know.
we have YouTube.
Yeah, no, it's again, there's YouTube definitely for resources for the how-tos for certain things, but just like we have so much technology at our fingertips now. When someone says they can't do something, I'm just like, well, did you try? Because like if you can use your phone, you've probably got enough tech to record something. Like it may be a bit of a struggle, but like you can make it work. One of my friends, she posted on Facebook. She recorded a song by making videos on her phone. She brought the video clips into a video editor and she mixed it, but she just wanted the audio from it.
Wow.
And I'm like, that is super hardcore.
Yeah.
Because that's what she felt she had access to, and she didn't know how to use a DAW, but she knew how to use the video thing. So
wow.
I'm like, that's the hustle. It's like there's lots of paths to get there these days. It's almost been 90 minutes. You got a bit more time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I don't, like, oh, Langford, it's like 11 p.m. Shut it down. But I wanted to ask too, because like there's a lot of different music made with Courage My Love over the years. What do you play live? Like, do you reimagine some of the earlier stuff, or is it more guitar solos for the later stuff? Or?
We've done like a bit of both. Like, there's been some tours where like we reimagined some like of the older songs a certain way, or sometimes we'll take like some of the newer music and like live it's a bit more like the arrangement's a bit more for like a band instead of how it is on record. So yeah, we try to like play it all, and like I feel like live it kind of evens out, because when the live arrangement I feel like tends to be a bit more like full band, kind of like heavy sounding. But that's just because I don't know, like I said, like it goes kind of like back to the beginning. Like Sades has always been really passionate about guitar, and then I kind of, that's my role in the band, is being the drummer. So to kind of remove those elements, I feel like kind of is a mistake, and it's just something that like live ends up adding a lot.
I feel like we're kind of up to where there's a transition between Courage My Love and Softcult. How was there a gap there? Was there an overlap? Was it like what kind of sparked that idea?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is an overlap, because I don't to me, like I people have asked me this before, like if CML is like done, and the answer is no. But I guess just while Sades and I were stuck at home, we weren't really able to, like have band practices. We kind of were just like in our own environment for a long time, and it just got us talking a lot about things that were important to us. A lot of world issues that were happening were like really influencing us. And so then the music we started writing ended up being a lot more political and a lot more message based, I guess. And then, yeah, we were recording it, and we were realizing, okay, well, we want to put this out, but it just kind of felt like it was its own thing, I guess. It didn't really feel like it was, like it fit under the CML moniker. It felt more like its own kind of project. And then, yeah, the sound, I guess, sound wise was different than what we'd been doing with CML. It was a bit more like grungy and shoegazy and more kind of like 90s rock inspired. So yeah, I'd say like there's overlap for sure, but it just kind of felt like it should be its own thing, and we shouldn't try to like squeeze it out like under CML's name.
I'm good friends with Nicole, part of your management team. I remember she passed me one of the tunes when Softcult was kind of becoming a thing. And when I first heard it, I was like, this is awesome. Sounds awesome. This is super cool. But when I kind of put the pieces together, I was because again, like Curse My Love had this arc
Mm-hmm.
of being teenagers, getting older, getting signed, going through, you know, the factory that is the music industry a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, and kind of feeling like maybe it's matured and it's kind of decided what it wants to be and like what it wants
Mm-hmm.
to do. But from my opinion, it's like when you say Curse My Love is, you know, it's not done, it's like it can go on the shelf. Like bands can go
Mm-hmm.
on hiatus and stuff. But
For
when I
sure.
saw that, I was just like, this is great. The name's great. The visual's great. Like I get it. I get what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. And it can kind of like, again, you'd say it's not, it's not done, but it's like, it can kind of put a bookend on one part and then carry on from another.
Yeah.
Because it's hard when you listen to, not to get, you know, geeky into it, but it's just like with algorithms for these streaming platforms, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you have music that's so drastically different under the same artist and it's
Yeah.
spanning like 10 years, it's like that can, even the algorithms like, I don't know what to do right now
Yeah.
with this to try to push this music out. So it's like, to me, it was like, no, this is a good pro move as far as, you know, we're rebranding and we're pivoting what we want to do, and you're sure of it now. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, like you've you know, and you've got 10, 12, you know, years of industry experience already, and it's like you can start in a new spot and
Yeah.
like take all that experience with you
Mm-hmm.
and move forward. And yeah, I just
You're
when I sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
You're totally right about that. Like I think, yeah, like at least with Softcult, it did feel just like kind of like from the get go, like okay, we know what this is, you know, and yeah, as you say, you know, sometimes you can get kind of pigeonholed by algorithms, you know, like they can kind of put you in a certain group. And I think, yeah, like with Soft Cult, we just really knew kind of like, okay, this is kind of the message we want to have. This is kind of like the look we want to have. This is the vibe that we feel like this band is. So yeah, starting fresh too, it's always exciting to, you know, like, I don't know, start something from the top, you know, instead of like adding to it. That's exciting too, but it's cool to be like at the start of a project and kind of, you know, I don't know, put it forward the way you want to put it forward.
Was that evolutionary life cycle
Yeah.
of creative, you know, the creative process. And it's one thing to like take a song from beginning to end, and then I'm usually like excited about starting the next song because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that one's good, we're good. But it's like I can only imagine what that feels like in a band sense, where you're just like, and again, you mentioned like the last year, there's a lot of time for people to kind of do, you know, take an assessment of everything that's going on, and
Mm-hmm.
time to think and time to figure things out. And you know, your sister there, it's like you can talk about those because there's a lot of skill sets and talent, you know, under that umbrella already. So like it didn't surprise me that
Oh.
that was the time to make the pivot for things, because it's got to be tough when you feel like you're maybe in a band that's not sure of its identity, but when you see
Yeah.
something else, you're like, no, that's what we want to do. This is the audience we want to try to bring in here. Yeah, no, I thought it was awesome. I thought that was the best move. And also to put it there too, it's like some artists that are afraid to make that move
Mm-hmm.
because you,
Yeah.
you feel there's that what's it called? I can't remember the title for it, but just like you don't want to let go of all of that all the experience, all the
Yeah.
brand that you built up. Yeah, I can't remember what the extra term is. But then the flip side of it is the opportunity cost, where it's
Yeah.
like you keep doing something else when you should be doing, you know, keep
Yeah.
doing the same thing when you should be doing something else, because like the opportunity cost, like that's very expensive when you're just like, we could have started this and we could have, you know,
Totally.
moved over here. So
I feel you with that. And like, you know, yeah, like it's definitely like scary starting something from scratch, especially like, you know, like CML, it's something we did for so many years and we started as teenagers. So there's obviously a lot of like nostalgia there and a lot of, you know, like really good memories there. But as you say, like, you know, like this band, we're starting as adults. And so that kind of has a whole different perspective. And, you know, like we're writing about different things that we probably wouldn't have written about as teenagers. We're, you know, thinking about different things, inspired by different things. And yeah, like you said, it's kind of, I feel like our identity now versus us trying to grow from an identity that we had years ago, you know? So that's kind of, yeah, for me, I feel really excited about Softcult because I just kind of feel like we get to be ourselves and we don't have to try to like live up to anything or, you know, really please anyone. Like it's kind of more just like our thing that we can do, and you know, it's our unfiltered voice kind of.
See, Chris is chiming in here. Chris says sunk costs.
Sunk costs.
That's what I was looking for, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I always remember that. People was like, if you're watching a bad movie, just turn it off and just move on to something else. I'm not saying that's what the case was with First My Love, but yeah, it's a thing, you know, be it because even with bands in general too, because I've seen people, you know, have bands that are just like, this is not the bigger picture. This is probably not what you should be doing. And, you know, just figure it out and try to move on. But one of the last things I wanted to touch on was, you know, you getting more of a producer role, a production role. How's that transition been?
It's been great. Like, it's kind of something that I've always really been into. And yeah, like watching Chris kind of in the early days do that stuff, and still to this day, like if there's anything that I need help with or that I don't know what to do, I always consult Chris and I'm like, hey, how do I do? What's going on? So yeah, it's just something I've always liked. And then yeah, now it's kind of like I can't really imagine passing off stuff for someone else to produce, because it's just, I don't know, not to sound like a control freak or anything, but it's just such a huge creative, I guess, part of a band's sound now, that I feel like it's kind of like a role in the band that, you know, I'm not just the drummer. Like I get to have a little bit more creativity than that. So I don't know. It's really cool to try to learn, and it's been something that it's definitely like made it easier to get through hard times. Like last year, especially, anytime I was bummed about being at home, I would just kind of go to the studio and try to learn how to do something, or, you know, how to record something properly. So that's, yeah, it's been like a big part of, I guess, like me getting through rough times.
I will say, if you didn't want to say it, I'll say it. We are control freaks.
Yeah.
We do enjoy messing with stuff. I was messing with guitar tones for way longer than I should have been today, but that's part of the gig sometimes. Other thing I wanted to touch on, I started teaching a couple of years ago, and a lot of female students, a lot of more women wanting to get into the idea of recording. And like you think back to your first recording experience with somebody, you know, as a guy basically say you're not good enough to record, they should hire some other people. What DAW are you using? What platform are you using to compose on?
So yeah, I use Logic Pro X, and that's been my DAW basically since I started recording. Actually, that's not true. I started on GarageBand.
Okay.
Upgraded to Logic, yeah. But yeah, like you said, it's kind of a space that I feel like not a lot of women occupy in the music industry. So that's been something that's kind of inspiring, and a big part of Softcult obviously is, you know, empowering women. So I feel grateful that I get to do that in, you know, that way, I guess. Not that, you know, I feel like a lot of the time producers are kind of like unsung. They're a little bit more in the background, but again, that's my comfort zone a bit more. So I'm totally fine with that.
I think it's interesting because I when I heard you say Logic, I was like, Logic or GarageBand? Because like you have this software on your computer. Like most people that have an Apple or Mac computer, we have that software on there. And before, I feel like a lot of people didn't have access to recording software. Like you had to do a little bit of digging to get access to it. And even like, you know, 10, 15 years ago, it was still more difficult than it was. Like we still needed some fairly expensive interfaces. And if you're 14 years old, it's like, and you don't have access to these things, you're probably not going to start recording, you know? And if you're a 14-year-old girl, it's like, it might be a little bit difficult to get a hold of some of this gear. Now it's like, if you've got your MacBook or whatever, and you've got GarageBand in there, you can just start making music. Like you can start, it's the access to it. And that was one of the things with parents asking, you know, when should my kid get into lessons? I'm like, just have a guitar, drums, or piano, just have it around. They'll dabble with it if they're interested. And it's like, I see that like women getting into production, like music production in general, it's like, it didn't have access to it. That's why there's this giant gap. And then the idea of, can you imagine being 19 and trying to get into a recording studio as an assistant or as an intern or something? And it's a boys club, you know?
It's like, yeah, it's kind of like you said, like it is a bit of a boys club, but now it's so easy to just do it yourself. Like now, you know, you have probably GarageBand if you have a Mac, or if not, you know, there's other ways of recording. You can watch so many tutorials on YouTube. It's easier than ever to like kind of have like a home recording setup and, you know, do it DIY. And I think actually kind of circling back to when we were talking about like radio and Spotify, I think a lot of the artists that are actually like popping off on streaming platforms right now are kind of self-produced, and you know, it's not like they have like the most expensive gear or anything. They're just kind of creative with how they use their gear that they do have. And you know, yeah, like everyone always brings up Billie Eilish, and you know, the mic that she used on her album is not like the top of the line mic, but it's still like, you know, an album that's like incredible and is like won awards and stuff. So I think, yeah, it's kind of just one of those things now where there's less gatekeepers involved. So if you want to do something, you can go out and figure out how to do it. And it is competitive with the things that are made in like big recording studios with lots of money, you know?
Oh, no, totally. Well, like my comment before too, like it was a boys club. Like I do think things are changing a lot. And again, like the classes I have, there's 10 students.
Yeah.
You know, 4 of them probably women. And it's like, I think that's great because like, again, 15 years ago, it was a very, very different story. 20 years ago, completely different story. Just having the access to the software. And you're saying too, like cost to entry, you know, you can get an SM58 and you can make a record and like, and you know, work in Logic and, you know, pay a couple dollars to get it distributed out to Spotify and everything. There's nobody stopping you these days. When people start making excuses, even if they're just like, well, it doesn't sound very good. It's like, lots of stuff doesn't sound that good, but will you put it out? You know, you'd still stand behind it. And, you know, it's just, there's, the tools are better than ever. And again, seeing the way you and Mercedes are using stuff right now, again, because the audio side and the video side, it's like, that's the way to do it. Just figure it out. And again, you're saying too, the idea of just like, you know, it's up here. The ideas are up here. It's not in the computer. It's not in the gear. So again, it's like, I would, as much as some people would, I'm ranting a little bit, but some people would argue like some of it sonically isn't the best that we're hearing out there. But I'm just like, I would rather hear a subpar sonically awesome track than them not have the ability to even start that in the first place. Yeah. Like not even get a chance. Or for someone else that's in the studio, it's just like, well, I don't think it's very good, so we're not going to do this. It's like, well, no, I'll just go home and do this because we have the gear to do it. I would rather hear that experimentation process happen with artists with the gear that we have these days. So
yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I think that it in and of itself, it's like a big way for people to just become, you know, to develop their own sound. It's just like if they do it themselves and they're experimenting and trying things. And yeah, you know, Sade's like, she works on all our videos and she directs our videos and our visuals and stuff. And she's doing it on her laptop. It's not, you know, a crazy system that she has. It's nothing crazy, but she figured out, you know, a way to do it herself. And it's just been so useful to us because, you know, if we want to make a video now, we can make it. We don't have to like worry about like finding someone to do it for us. We kind of just figure out how we can do it. So I think, yeah, I think there's more people nowadays, and you probably, like you say, you see them in your classes, you know, they're taking it upon themselves to try to be artists, but in like a fuller sense of the word, you know, like have more control over their image and control over the aesthetic and the art that they put out there. And I think, yeah, that's like a huge important part of being an artist, especially now when like that content is what people consume probably the most, you know?
So great comment here that ties in. Michael's saying at least you can hear proof of concept for your band or song.
Mm-hmm.
And to roll that in what you're saying earlier, it's just like, you know, you've taken a producer role with Softcult. For years, I've been thinking like that's the way that this is going to go. With bands having people that know production within the band. And that's part of the edge, because imagine how much it costs to go, and not to say don't hire anybody, but there's things that we can just do that's easier right now. You know, in-house. And it's like, I'm of the thought, like, again, some of my engineer friends are probably not going to like me for saying this. I don't think recording is that difficult, especially these days. And while there's still a lot artistically engineers can bring to the process, it's not like it used to be with how much we needed to take care of in the studio. Right now, it's like kind of arm the track, hit record, make sure the microphone's plugged in or whatever it is. Like and make sure you're not clipping. It's like, it's not rocket science that way anymore, where we don't have engineers like we did back in the 70s sort of thing. But I see more and more of it. And you're saying too, with Spotify, it's like, there's a lot of self-produced artists out there. You know, maybe they sub out some of the mixing, you know, maybe there's a couple pieces that they'll sub out, but for the most part, it's like the bottleneck is their own output as far as like what they can actually do. So,
well, and that's like, for sure, like you said, like, it's not like you have to, because it can be overwhelming if you feel like, oh, you have to do everything yourself. That's not what I'm saying either. Like, you totally, like me, I love producing and I love recording, but I know I'm still learning about mixing and stuff. So I would never be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna completely like mix and master this myself, because I just know that I'm not there yet. But there's no shame in like, if you record something yourself and produce it to the best of your ability, and you know, you send it out to someone else to make it all like glossy and make it all pro, that's totally fine. It's still like your creative voice out there. And like, collabing with people is still like important, because there's probably people out there right now that, you know, like most artists, like recording engineers, and you know, they're looking for work and they would probably love to help with what you're doing. So yeah.
I've got more and more questions, but I think this is a good place to start wrapping this up before it gets too late. What's next for Softcult?
So yeah, we're putting out an EP in April called Year of the Rat, and yeah, I'm really excited for that. And we're also working on our zine. It's called Scripture, and yeah, I do a lot of the artwork for the zine, and Sades does a lot of the writing for it. And we also you can submit your own art and your own writings if you want.
And it's a physical zine.
It's a physical and digital zine, so you can have either.
That's wicked.
Yeah, it's but yeah, all that info, if you want to be a part of the zine, it's on our website. And yeah, we've got a song coming out at the end of the month too, so keep your peepers peeled for that one.
End of the month. Where can everybody find you?
You can find us on most pretty much like any social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. And yeah, we're on YouTube. And yeah, if you have any questions about anything, our website as well. Yeah, we're just all over the place.
Yeah, the Softcult handle for all of them?
Yeah, it's Softcult Band.
Softcult.band?
I think
or is it Softcult
Band?
On
our social media it should be Softcult Band, and I think our website is softcult.band.
All right, sounds good. I will, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put the details of those in the description below. Phoenix, thank you so much for joining tonight. I really enjoyed this conversation again. It's crazy how long ago crossing paths at the Pocket Studios here in Toronto.
I know. No, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, it's been so good to catch up.
Sounds good. All right, I'm just gonna wrap things up here. Thanks again, Phoenix. I'll be back in a second. First day. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. I guess tonight, early teens started playing drums. It sounded like her sister needed a drummer. I know that feeling. My older brother was a guitar player, and I feel like sometimes maybe I got drums because he needed a drummer. But yeah, the path going from that to being serious about music, finding themselves, signing a major label deal, actually getting scouted by Chris and Nicole. Nicole Hughes, Chris Perry. Two fantastic people, two fantastic songwriters as well. And yeah, Phoenix finding herself, going to Japan, touring America, Canada, Europe. We didn't even get to Europe. I was going to ask about the European tours. I'm sure there's some stories. I see some smiles off to the sides from Phoenix. Thinking about European tours right now. Heat Stroke and Warp Tour. Almost having a full life cycle of a band, and then forming Softcult last year. Last year was difficult, so it was interesting to see what some musicians and artists did with that time. Again, details, where to find Phoenix and Softcult and Encourage My Love will be in the details below on YouTube. Thanks again to everyone who took part in the chat. I'll respond to some messages on there when we can. Once again, my name is Mike Langford. It's been another episode of DearBands Live, where we explore the paths and stories of career-minded musicians and music industry professionals. That's my time today. Thanks for watching.